Hey everybody, I'm Josh Olive with Haven Comics. It's Thursday night, which means it's time for Shop Talk, where Alan and I are going to talk some comics. We're going to have on a very, very special guest that we're really excited about. And we're going to hear from you guys in the chat, and we're going to see what all is happening in the world of comics. So stick around after this intro, and we're going to get right into it. So, here we are, Thursday night. All manner of things going down. The comics world is a loony bin right now, and we're going to start by talking a little bit about that. So I need my trusty companion, the one, the only, Mr. Alan Breedlove, Darth Allen himself. What's happening, man? Are you there? Are you using the Force on me?
Is it not playing? Can you not hear it?
It is now. It took it a second.
There we go. Okay. I mean, you just can't go wrong with that. I needed some good theme music in my life. I think everybody needs theme music.
I tend to agree. No, you cannot go wrong with that. So let's talk about a couple of the big things that are going on here. One, did you see that Jim Lee was just made the president of DC?
Yeah, and part of me is wondering, with Josh Williamson is basically being called the architect of the new DC. I wonder
how,
of
DC anyway, yeah.
Yeah, the architect of DC. I wonder how this working relationship is going to go and what direction they're going to try to go in. I wonder if they're going to work together. You know, what exactly is Jim Lee's role in what Josh Williamson is doing? How much will Jim Lee try to influence it? And I mean, it's only a matter of time before we find those things out.
It's true. I'm hopeful that this means good things because it's a comic guy who's in charge of it. And so I'm hopeful that that's going to spell good things for DC. And we'll see. He's still reporting to somebody who's not a comics person, and that's somebody who does not exactly have a great history of making smart publishing decisions or any of the things we would want out of comics. So we'll see how much power Jim Lee actually has, and then we will hope for the best, certainly. But, guys, we can talk about that stuff later. Right now, we have got a phenomenal person that we want to introduce, somebody we have been looking forward to talking to for quite some time. And there's no more appropriate time than today, since it is May the 4th. And this is a guy who's got a long history with Star Wars. I would love to bring on Mr. Howard Chaykin. How are you, sir? Hey, you get applause.
If you brought me here on the false pretense that I'm supposed to give a shit about Star Wars, you are really in serious trouble.
Nope, not at all. And that's exactly
I'm assuming you're fucking with me in this regard. I mean, you know full well just how much I absolutely love everything about the franchise that is Star Wars. As I explained to someone only half an hour ago, I made Cully Hamner have shit come out of his nose when I referred to them as laser swords. I don't have any interest whatsoever in talking about Star Wars, about promoting Star Wars, about the fact that today is May the 4th, the fact that you guys are willing to provide cheap and free advertising for a corporate enterprise that couldn't give a shit about you is a demonstration of how easily you're convinced by bullshit. And that's it for me. Have a great day, guys. And please, be righteous, try the veal, and drive home safely.
In all fairness, we do sell a lot of Star Wars comics.
I don't doubt it. I mean, you've got an audience that has no taste whatsoever and is willing to be bamboozled into any level of bullshit. It's okay. I'm okay with that.
That's right.
It hasn't earned me a dime. I mean, my relationship with Star Wars really boils down to the fact that had I known it was going to be as big a deal as it was going to be, I might have thought I might have done a better job at it. I'm not sure I had the skill set to do a better job at it. I also never profited whatsoever from any of the millions of copies that Marvel sold because it existed in the year before the royalty situation. My entire compensation for the many millions of copies that book sold, which saved the company, despite the fact that Stan did everything he possibly could to kibosh the project. Roy was the one who ramrodded it through. Stan never wanted to do the Star Wars book because he had no interest in licensing properties. That the book saved the company, and my entire compensation, that was an additional $15 a page reprint fee, and that was it. That was all the money I made. So it's kind of like that restaurant where the food is really lousy, but the portions are really small. You know, so that's what I'm at. You know. Basically, fuck them, fuck the material. I have not seen a Star Wars movie since I saw the first half of the second or third one. I had it on. I was watching it on VCR. My phone rang. I answered the phone. I never went back to finish the movie, so I assume we won or some shit. I don't care. You know, had I known,
that's a reasonable assumption.
Well, you know, I mean, look, I mean, I expected there to be a secular religion arising in the 21st century. I did not expect it to be about Star Wars, because Star Wars felt so much like the providence of an audience that just wasn't very smart. But now the general audience, has become as idiotic as the comic book audience. So they're really available for this. I expected there to be a secular religion to evolve out of Elvis. And I'm not being facetious. I'm quite serious. Elvis's death. To some
extent, there probably was one. It just wasn't as big, yeah.
I mean, I think in lieu of Star Wars, it might very well have been. But Star Wars has become a secular religion. And, you know, with acolytes, with people fighting over things. And just like, it is such nothing stuff. It's, you know, I mean, I review Star Wars movies without seeing them now. Because I feel that
I bet you're dead on accurate too.
I'm equipped and qualified to basically figure out just what level of audience pandering that they'll now achieve next. And, you know, it's, you know, all this stuff about, you know, hi, Dave, all these people complaining about Lucas's work and too much material and J.K. Rowling and all that, you know, maybe if people stopped watching children's shit and reading children's books as grown men and women, perhaps they wouldn't give a shit about what these people are doing or saying. But, you know, I'm not that guy. You know, I'm not particularly interested in pandering to an audience whose standards are so low. I mean, it's a low bar business. You know, where are you guys, by the way? Where are you?
We are in Huntsville, Alabama. So we're up in
Huntsville, Alabama.
State. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, you mentioned Cully Hamner, and he is from here.
Yes. Cully is one of my favorite people in the world. I think he's, I don't want to tell anybody this, the Case's house. Cully might be, I think he's going to be at the Lake Como show this weekend, right? I think so.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very jealous because all my pals are in Italy.
We have a really hard time getting him to come back here for local shows.
Well, it's because he hates you, I'm sure. You know, he loathes and despises all you people. Oh, look, I don't go to New York much, you know. I mean, I never go home, you know.
That's fair. So for maybe the like 4 people out there who don't know who you are and what your work has been, how do you summarize that? You've been doing this for a really long time, and you've worked for everybody and done everything, and you've done a lot of solo stuff that has been like critically acclaimed and all these things. How did you get started in this business? What's your origin story? I'm sure you've told it a million times, but not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I discovered comics when I was 4 years old. Around the same time, the Comics Code Authority came in and infantilized everything. And this is the summer of 1955. And I taught myself to read from comic books. I knew when I discovered comics that someone made these, that I wanted to be one of those people. I had no particular skill set or talent, but I was hungry for it, and I was angry enough that I wanted to be this. And ultimately I did. You know, I got work in my first couple of years under false pretenses. I have no idea why anybody thought my work had any value, because I spent the first 10 years of my career doing English shit, which made no sense whatsoever and didn't really had no real value. It wasn't until I went away from comic books and worked in other illustration forms and did other things for a living that I developed a respect for craft and respect for technique, and came back and did American Flagg, which was probably the first great comic book of the 1980s. But because it didn't look like and read like the sort of trope-based and kabuki Roadrunner Coyote Victorian melodrama comic book with capes and masks. It's a forgotten book because basically it wasn't Batman, it wasn't Watchmen, it didn't have the franchise elements that, I mean, the way things used to be in American culture was that you had something called silly season, and silly season usually was in the summertime when people, dress casually and everything else. But now we live in a year-round silly season, and the silly season leaves yourself open to stuff that's like just kind of imbecilic and stupid. And the imbecilic and stupid in the realm of comic books is the fact that when people think of comic books, they think of the guys with shit coming out of their eyes and lasers and striking poses of great emotional pain. And significantly, I live in a small town. I live about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. And when the first Iron Man picture was trailering in the city, in this town, people were going batshit. They had no idea it was a comic book. They had no one ever mentioned anything to me because the ones who knew that I did comic books, they never associated with that. They wanted to see this movie, this weird thing with Robert Downey Jr. doing this weird shit. And that was when I first understood that comic books had become utterly irrelevant and pointless. They were unnecessary. The comic book marketplace has had there has been no impact on the comic book marketplace from the trickle-down effect of the movies being so successful. The actual genius in comic books is Kevin Feige, who has been able to monetize to the tune of billions of dollars, massively successful material aimed at an audience that 99.5% have no idea that comic books existed or continue to exist and couldn't give a shit if they knew. When I came on, you were talking about, I guess you were talking about Jim Lee or James Gunn.
Yeah, Jim Lee was just made president of DC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were talking about how it's going to affect the working relationship between Jim Lee and Josh Williamson on which direction the stories go and all that, because right now Josh Williamson is considered the architect of DC.
Who is Josh Williamson? I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, he's a writer and artist. He's been doing it for a while. Kind of been under the radar for a significant portion of that.
Well, obviously he's not on my radar because I've never heard of him. Who is he?
Yeah.
What is he doing?
He kind of, the first really big book that he got notoriety for was the Batwoman incarnation that came out probably 7 years ago. He did really well on that.
I had a book. I'm slipping into a coma already. I don't care. I mean, this is all about shit I don't care about. I mean, I'm if anything, politics interests me in the marketplace as opposed to the actual characters. So whatever. I mean, I don't think that comic books matter one bit. They just don't matter at all. The truth is, what matters is the movies that are made of them. Comic books are a flea on a tail that's wagging a dog, and they're irrelevant. The fact that comics continue to be published shocks me no end. It really does, because they're totally unnecessary. You can't
learn how to read from a movie, right?
Yeah, but nobody bothers to read anyway. Who reads? Do you have children?
I don't, but we have a lot of customers at the shop who do.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I have grandchildren who don't read, and they seem perfectly comfortable in the culture in which they function. I'm a lifelong reader. I've got a book in my upstairs toilet. I've got a book in my downstairs toilet. I've got a book on my Kindle on my night table, and I've got a book on an Audible in my car. So at any given time of the day, I'm in story, but that's unusual. Most people don't read. They get their information from news. They don't read the newspaper. I read the newspaper every day. And I'm a constant reader and have been since I was 4 years old. And the audience for comics is right now. I mean, when I see these basically it's fan fiction. It's for the most part it's material aimed at an audience that wants its own belief system ratified, codified, and confirmed. And my job has always been to question as opposed to confirm, and to needle and as opposed to comfort. And that has not served me well commercially. It really hasn't, because I'm serious. I have no commercial. I have no commercial footprint whatsoever. I have a critical footprint, but even that's fading. I mean, I skipped most of the 90s to work in television because I recognized the fact that if I was going to get this old, I better do something about myself that was going to give me money to live a life. And I have that now. I'm still a member of the WGA, and if I were living in Los Angeles, I'd be picketing, but I don't, and I'm not going to commute 2 hours in both ways to stand on a picket line for no purposes. I'm retired anyway. I have no dog in that fight. Well, I do have a dog in that fight, but my dog's dead. My relationship with comic books is I'm more interested in the form than the content. The content doesn't interest me as mainstream comics are. They're basically, mainstream comics boils down to a rotor on a coyote based narrative, a Mobius strip of an unchanging obscurity with no real closure, with characterization that has more to do with hand puppets and the Victorian melodrama than anything even identifiable as adult fiction. But the audience for comic books is grown men and women who still read the shit they read when they were children, with this lather of gravitas to make them feel they're reading adult material. So there you go.
So you talked about being more interested in the form, and what is it about the form that's interesting to you that still holds your interest?
The page, the very idea of the existence of a page, which preceded by a page and followed by a page, the dynamic narrative available of the turning of the page, the design of the page as an element of space representing time, the page as a series of panels, each in turn spaces representing time, the page as a storytelling device, as a unit of measurement of space. I love it. I really do. I mean, I get up every morning and, I'm at my desk by 9, and I get the same charge out of making comics that I once did from reading them. And I'm always looking for someone to show me a new way of thinking about the page. And it hasn't happened much. I really like the idea of playing with the real estate of the page and coming up with ways to control time on the page. One of the things that I find most fascinating is that the impact of comics on popular culture has been the form ignored and the content being absorbed. So what you've got is, there's my beautiful wife waving at us. She couldn't care less. She has never read a comic book in her life. It's really good. I really love this. No, she has no idea what I do for a living. It's really good. She barely. No, not true. Okay. So for me, the very thing that's most important about comic books is left behind as comics become the primary source of content for mass media, for television, for movies, for video games, all this other stuff. But it's the page that still intrigues me. It's the idea of having that space, that block of space, and figuring out a way to come up with images and images that relate to each other, that are endowed with narrative content and narrative value. I don't draw as well as a lot of people in comic books, but I know how to combine the concept of narrative, text, and visuals into an idea that has a synergy that has real value. But we have an audience that is interested in the content as opposed to the form. Comics fandom in its earliest stages was about form as opposed to content. The content came afterward. I mean, the first really serious fandom was not the Superman of America Club or the Captain America Society back in the 40s. Those were children. The first really significant fans were the EC fan addicts in the early 50s. And those were guys who were responding to something that EC was doing that no one else was doing. They were guys who had mostly outgrown superhero comic books, and they were interested in other genre material. Most of the stuff was the horror stuff, but there were still some diehard fans of the war material and of the crime stuff, and of the shock stuff. And those fans are informed so much of what my generation believed we would become and never did, because we misjudged the audience and its relationship to content. Most of us were EC fans, second generation. None of us are old enough to have been around for those books in their actual existence. But we'd all discovered those books in those Ballantine paperbacks back in the mid 1960s, and we tracked them down, and we began to look at this stuff. And when we came together as a gathering of tribe, which is really what happened in the late 60s, early 70s, first Wrightson, then Kaluta, then Alan Weiss, Frank Brunner, all these guys, they were all EC guys, you know, and we all believed that we would be the flowering of a second generation of EC, because we assumed that we would outlive superhero comic books, because superhero comic books were drawn and written by men our father's age. You know, most of Stan's staff was guys that he pilfered from Dottie Woolfolk's love books. You know, that's where Ramita was working. That's where Gene Colan was working. You know, and he just basically brought them over and turned them into superhero artists. They all basically were given the mandate of imitating Jack Kirby, and it was assumed that we would outlive this stuff. But because Stan had so dogmatic an idea of what the books should look like, what comic books should how they should appear, that none of us felt capable or interested in bending to the wheel of that. The only guy of my generation, Starlin came a little bit later, although he's my age, was Rich Buckler. Buckler was ready to do Marvel Comics when he landed. He was fully formed. If Buckler had been a more straightforward figure, he would have been a serious major player. But he never really did. He didn't become one for a number of reasons, none of which are relevant here. But what we didn't anticipate was the simultaneity of Stan releasing his reins on what superhero comic books could look like and putting it into the hands of Roy. And at the same time, the advent of Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz, Dennis Cowan, younger guys 5 to 10 years our junior, who really loved superhero comic books as they were superhero comic book fans, but didn't draw like Jack Kirby, didn't think like Jack Kirby. You know, I mean, Bill was an advocate of Neal Adams. Dennis Cowan was still seeking his approach, but he was like sort of in the middle. And Frank's brilliant idea out front was to synergize Gil Kane, Steve Ditko, and Will Eisner. That's what those Daredevil books were. And we were gobsmacked. We were blindsided, and we never recovered. Because all of a sudden there were guys providing superhero content to an audience that wanted superhero content that weren't 45, 50 years old. They were kids, just like us. And, you know, Simonson adapted to that world. Wrightson came to it later. Kaluta never did. Brunner was lucky enough to find Howard the Duck and Doctor Strange. But I certainly never did. I'm a journeyman talent when it comes to superhero stuff. My first mentor was Gil Kane. And I've always believed that Gil was the guy who most successfully synergized what Jack was doing at Marvel, even though Stan regarded Gil's work as effeminate. And Gil had to really prove himself.
Are you serious?
Quite serious. Those
Gil
weren't the
Kane
words.
is one of the best comic book artists ever.
Those weren't that wasn't the word that Stan used. I won't use the word that Stan used because I'll be pilloried by people. Because we live in a world in which the use of language is, even a descriptor, is regarded as intent as opposed to demonstration. Gil had to prove himself to Stan that he was capable of doing what Stan needed. A lot of it was that, you know, Gil had an approach to comic book action sequences that had an influence from the dance. You know, his work was very balletic, and there was a choreography to his work and his presentation of fight scenes in that hyperbole. But it was very organized, and the characters that moved in a way that, you know, Gil was really that guy who would literally between Jack Kirby, but not the Kirby of the 1960s and 70s, but the Kirby of the 1940s and 1950s, with the added adjunct of that fraud Bern Hogarth. You know, and Gil never understood that he transcended Hogarth. Hogarth was utter bullshit. But he absorbed a lot of work from that. He also studied really hard and you know, did enormous finger practice, and he taught himself to be good. but he was good within so narrow a confine of hyperbolic event that he never really transcended it. And but we as a generation, we're unprepared for this. I mean, I've done superhero comic books, but it's not anything like a primary skill set for me. My primary skill sets are drawing real people doing real things to each other, occasionally killing each other, occasionally fucking. And that's sort of where it's at. I mean, Hey Kids Comics, which is what I'm working on right now. I'm about to start the 5th issue of the 3rd and final arc.
Yeah, that's been really great.
Well, thanks. I'm most grateful to hear it.
I think it's something that should be required reading.
Yeah, but nobody cares about it because it isn't it's a counter narrative to what people want to believe. Stan posited this whole idea of us as a bunch of goofy comic book loving guys, and that was just nonsense. There was bitterness and hatred. One of the great thematic elements of that first volume of Hey Kids is the bitterness of that first generation, who all thought they were doing something temporarily before their actual jobs kicked in, and of course they ended up dying doing this stuff. And one of the reasons my generation lacked that bitterness, except for the narcissists, were that we came in with our eyes open. We knew full well what was going to happen. We didn't have any other expectations. And that seems fairly healthy. Then the generation after ours, made a shitload of money through I think unintentionally exploiting an audience that was stupid enough and fatuous enough to fall for bullshit. Those comic books as collecting investments. All those piles and piles of unsold copies of comic books that were bought and never sold. But there are millionaires out there who made a fortune off of that. The variant covers, the chrome covers, the event covers. I got to watch comics in the 90s as opposed to work in them, and you couldn't find it more specifically pointed out as benighted and misbegotten a decade as that 10-year period.
Then we're kind of back in it right now with the proliferation of variant covers and cover gimmicks and things, but it's even less so even the gimmicks these days. It's just the proliferation of variants.
Yeah,
so we're not selling stories, we're selling covers.
I have no idea why that. I've been solicited. I'm doing them right now. I've been solicited to do an occasional variant cover, and I'm not. My covers are fine, but it's a tertiary skill set of mine at best. I mean, my skill set is the page and the text. But to tell you the truth, if the audience is buying it, and I should explain that I'm working for free. I mean, I've gone from being a hobbyist to a professional to a hobbyist. I'm no longer billing for work, and in terms of at Image, for example, I'm doing Hey Kids Comics totally for back end money. I'm financing it myself. So when I get a job that comes in that pays real dough, I'll do it. Because that literally makes it possible for me to afford to pay my letterer, my colorist, my assistant. And it's, I mean, I'm an old man. I'm 72 years old, and I've been doing this for well over 50 years. So I know my way around the room, and I have no illusions about where I stand professionally or personally. So if someone offers me a job, I'll give it serious consideration.
To jump backwards just a second, you were talking about your assistant just now, and then you talked earlier. You were Gil Kane's assistant.
Yes.
And if I know my history correctly, and you can certainly tell me if I do or not, he was known to be fairly difficult for people to work with. He kind of churned through people a little bit. How did you stick that out?
I mean, he was a complex and contradictory guy. How do you mean difficult? What do you mean?
Just that not everybody could handle it.
Totally. Just to be, can you be more specific?
I
don't want to put you on the spot. I mean, he's dead, so you can't hurt his feelings.
No, and I'm not trying. I'm just saying, from what I understand, just from things that I've read through various sources, he could be a challenging guy to work for, and he kind of churned through assistants a little bit. But you managed to find the.
I don't really think that's true.
Okay,
no, I don't. I mean, he was difficult. I mean, he was demanding. He was smart, and he was obnoxious, and he was contradictory, and he was occasionally profoundly dishonest. But I mean, I worked for him. I replaced a guy who died in his sleep named Tim Battersby, who, had he lived, would have been a real player. Roger Brand worked for him. And there was a guy named Ken Landgraf, who I think was his last assistant before he moved west. I don't really know. I worked for Gil for a year when I was a kid. I was 18 and 19. And we didn't speak for many years until my early 30s. We ran into each other, but he held me in complete contempt. And it wasn't until I did Flagg that he took me seriously, and that changed everything.
And I think that's a perfect segue, because I think American Flagg changed a lot of things. You talk about the form and the content, like having that perfect marriage.
Right.
American Flagg was revolutionary in many ways, I thought. I was really young for American Flagg.
I'm very proud of that work. Yes.
Yeah, when it came out, I was really young for that. I was trying to wrap my head around it. But having read it as I've gotten older, I can see why it won so many awards, and it had the critical acclaim that it had. Do you think, a market still for that? I would love to see that more readily available in the marketplace.
No, because the audience has been so infantilized to believe that they're getting adult content if they see Batman's penis, that there's no real argument to be made for actually complicated material. There's a market for sort of the romanticized edginess of stuff like Batman and the X-Men in that very soap opera way, but remember, you're dealing with an audience that reads children's books and thinks they're reading adult novels with Harry Potter and Mockingjay and all this other stuff. And most people, I mean, I'm up to here with everything with superpowers, with dragons and space. It's I'm just not interested in doing that sort of thing. And one of the reasons I'm doing Hey Kids is to do a book about real people suffering real things, and just doing shitty things to each other, because that's what people do. I think we let ourselves off the hook by constantly looking at monsters and supervillains and people who talk and act in ways that imply that there's a difference between heroes and villains. There is no difference. People who act in a positive way and a negative way earnestly and honestly believe they are operating in the best possible way in service to humanity, however that humanity may be visualized. And I'm just not interested in encouraging an audience that wants to believe that shit. They're welcome to it. I'm just not going to participate in it.
Now, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the more independent companies that do not focus on superheroes and powers and things like that?
But for the most part, there's some interesting stuff there. My favorite two books of the past couple of years have been Stephen Frank's Palomino, which is a crime book that takes place in the 1980s in the country western scene in North Hollywood. It's absolutely fantastic. And I really dug Tony Fleek's and I think Rachel Kushner's her name, Stray Dogs. I thought Stray Dogs was sensational. But even so much of the independent stuff is still fantasy based. It's all monsters and science fiction and space and my eyes start rolling into the back of my head so much they start clinking. I'm just not that interested. Jackson Geis has been posting pages of script examples of his collection of Ken Bald's, Alex Kotsky's Apartment 3G. And I'm looking at this work and it just makes my head explode. It's so good. It's just so good. And this is a guy, Kotsky. There's a guy who came out of the Quality stable. He was working for Will, along with Lou Fine and Jack Cole and Reed Crandall, and those were the best books that came out during the 1940s. As much as I loathed Will Eisner personally, Will Eisner was responsible for functionally inventing the modern comic book. I mentioned earlier the content of the page. Will was the guy who figured out a way to transliterate the newspaper Sunday page into the aspect ratio of a comic book and make it work, which sounds just like natural because it is, but it isn't. There was a study and there was work to be done to make that transition. You know, we take things so much for granted as it's simply because they existed before we got here, not really recognizing the fact the work that was involved to get to the point where that work existed. You can't take that away from him. You know, on a personal level, I loathed him, but I have. He invented the work we do. I mean, everybody was doing Eisner in the 40s, including Jack Kirby. They were all doing it because Eisner was the one who solved the problem, who created the code. You know, and that was the deal. So I just, you know, when I think about modern comic books, I'm always interested in someone showing me stuff that is interesting, you know, and I'm usually unimpressed. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was on a panel at a convention, and there were these two guys who just done a book, trade paperback had just come out, and it sounded like a really interesting franchise and interesting premise. I bought the trade. I read it on the flight home, and like nearly 100 pages of characters simply standing around doing nothing, not acting, no physical body language. There was no sense of why this panel was chosen, why this panel existed. People have to understand that just drawing something and putting a panel border around it does not make it a picture. A picture in the context of comics has to be the shapes have to be laid out in a way, and it's a subjective idea, but in such a way that they have narrative content and narrative value, and that these characters there was no interaction, there was no overlapping. The pictures were boring. It depended entirely on text, and in 100 pages there wasn't a single shot, one shot of a character identifying subjectively with the reader, and that. Acknowledging the presence of the reader. I'm not talking about that fourth wall Deadpool or shit. I'm talking about literally acknowledging the presence of the reader in the process. Because the 6 people involved in a comic book are the editor, the writer, the artist, the letterer, the colorist, and the reader. The reader is the one who turns the page. And he's the one who has the page in his hands. And he's the one who makes the choice of what to see first. That's why you paginate. That's why you control the environment by pagination, by recognizing the fact that you can't put a surprise on an odd numbered page. It has to be on an even numbered page. And that's why you want to control the pagination of your material. You're making the environment.
I feel like you should teach classes on this idea because I understand.
I have and I do. I'm in the process right now of formalizing it, but we have a lecture series called The Paradigm, which talks very much about the basic comic book page, how to apply it, and then moving beyond it to doing it within alternatives, and then ultimately in practice. I'm in the process of actually I'll be having a long conversation about this tomorrow morning. We're going to probably introducing it at a convention later this fall.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I understand. I there's an element of storytelling.
You understand that most working professionals will never bother with this because they're perfectly happy with drawing Batman's dick. You know, that's really the bottom line. They don't care about the vocabulary and aesthetics of the material. They care about the superhero stuff. The problem we have here is that the audience and the talent pool frequently have the same taste, the same judgment call. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I was just going to say, I certainly see in a lot of modern comics that the element of storytelling that used to exist is largely lost. It is a lot of talking heads. There's not a lot of creativity in the layout that conveys what's happening. The ones that drive me insane are the 2-page spreads where it's just talking heads and you can't tell if you're supposed to read down the first page and then go to the next page or if you're supposed to read across it. That stuff drives me bonkers.
But it's also because the writer is the alpha now, you know, because the writer tends to regard the artist as a tool of just one more aspect of the delivery system of narrative. And most people who read comic books think that comic book writing is what the writer does. Comic book writing is a collaboration between the artist and the writer, and that the artist has to have some sense of narrative knowledge to take what the writer is giving him in its rawest form and translate it into images with narrative value. I keep coming back to that phrase, narrative value. When I was doing the Marvel seminar, which is a 3-day boot camp workshop, I did that for 8 years. After the first day of yelling at these people to start managing their time and becoming grown-ups, the second was talking about why you frame a picture the way you do, and that there's no arbitraries, there's no throwaways. Every panel has to have a reason why the picture is laid out the way it is, and there's motif, there's tropes, there's the way you organize space and shapes. It's a natural. I mean, I learned design by using color forms, which is a toy that was popular when I was a kid. And it's an invaluable process. One of the reasons that I'm able to produce work as quickly as I am is that I think geometrically. I work in geometry. And, my favorite comic book artist is Alex Toth. And my favorite illustrator is a guy named Robert Fawcett. Both of whom are deeply geometric in their approaches to life. If you look over,
Alex Toth could do so much with so few lines. The man was a genius. When he would work on Zorro, and it would just be.
But if you look at his pencils from the 1950s, before the work of the 70s and 80s came along, his pencils in the 1950s, when he was inked by other people like Mike Pepe, they were incredibly tight and they were incredibly involved. They were intricate and clever, but they still were graphic, and that's the thing. The graphic nature of the material is what matters there. So you've got me for another 5 minutes. You got me for another 5 minutes because I've got family in the house and I got to feed them.
Absolutely, people do like to eat. So you said you've got the next Hey Kids comics is going to be out shortly. One thing I did want to touch on, you worked on both the heavy metal comic or the magazine and the movie. Is that right?
Yeah. I ended up, they were having real problems with getting artwork out of the studio out west. And they got me really cheap. They flew me out west for a week, and everybody involved is dead, man. So I was able to do what they considered a full day's work between 9 and noon. A lot of it is that the studio they were barely competent. They couldn't. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, pissing away. I ended up designing the last half hour of the movie, storyboarding the last 15 minutes of it, and doing additional work. I designed one of the girl characters for Juan Jimenez's Harry Canyon sequence, because they couldn't seem to get what they wanted out of him. And I spent my afternoons fucking around. And I did some freelance work for A&M Records while I was there. I did an ad for the police, and I did some, I had a friend who was an art director over there. I said, pick up some other work. But the level of competence of animation talent back then was nothing. And one of the reasons why the Warner stuff, the Warner superhero animation that came along under Bruce Timm, wiped the floor with those guys, because these guys were really good draftsmen and really strong graphic designers. Bruce created an entire school of these guys. When you look at the Marvel work that was competing with them, there was no contest. It was just shitty. Bruce's work was just transcendent. There was nobody working on the heavy metal movie who was anywhere near that good. They had no idea what they were doing. Just astonishingly incompetent. And again, they got me really cheap. But I worked for the magazine as well. I worked for Julie Simmons and Lou Stathis. Lou Stathis died very, very young. Lou was a guy who was a pivotal figure in comics back then. He was the real idea behind Vertigo, but never got the credit. He trained Axel Alonso, and he trained Shelley Bond. And he was a major player at heavy metal. He was the real mind behind that. And he was the guy who ultimately edited Black Kiss. So that all those relationships came out of that. And hold on a second, will you? Just give me a second.
Sure.
I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you back in about 5, okay?
Yeah, I'm here.
Bye. My editor.
He made his editor wait for us. That's amazing.
Well, you guys are kind enough to ask me to come on. I was raised by wolves, but I've unlearned that behavior.
So, based on what you saw when you were there working on the heavy metal movie, how do you feel that the movie turned out?
I think it looks like a piece of shit. It really did. I mean, animation didn't become what it is literally until a generation came of age. That there's no accident that the Bruce Timm Warner Brothers stuff and the John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton stuff at Pixar came along at the same time. All these guys came. They all didn't study together, but they all came out of a mindset. I mean, there's a generation of talent there that came along and said this can be better. And the same, it was true of my generation. It's true of the guys who came along after me. It's true of like Frank, Bill, and Dennis. Bernie Kaluta. Just that whole crowd. And it really is a generational thrust. I mean, look at it this way. I mean, there's this mini generation of comic book talent that were born between 1938 and 40. Neal Adams, Jim Steranko, Gray Morrow, Tom Palmer, Roy Thomas, Steve Skates. All these those guys, a very tiny generation, okay, who profoundly influential on the material. If heavy metal had been done a decade later, or even 15 years later, it would have been an entirely different movie. It would have been. I mean, first of all, it probably would not have been an anthology, and there would have been a way to really achieve some effects that those talents didn't have access to. One of the things that personifies Bruce's work on the Superman and Batman stuff is the solidity of graphics. Those characters have a real grounding, which you don't see in the Marvel stuff at all. I saw my first grandchild was born in 2000 in January, December. She's here. I forgot her birthday was December or January. So we were the only couple in the audience seeing the Iron Giant and Toy Story 1 without kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both movies that we really loved, and we were stunned how much. Stephen Frank, the guy who did the Palomino, came over to the States to do Iron Giant. I'm a huge fan of Brad Bird. So the Pixar stuff, they're obviously some Pixar movies that just blow. I don't give a shit about cars or any of that crap, but Ratatouille is an astonishing picture. I love the Toy Story franchise. I'm a big weeper. I cry at everything. So, it takes its toll, but I'm always looking to see some stuff that's interesting in animation, but it's rare. I've not seen. I saw the first couple of episodes of the third season of Sex, Death, and Robots, and it didn't do much for me. I liked a couple of the things in the first one, and the same with the second, but I haven't really returned to it. Right now, my favorite animated series is Big Mouth. I love Big Mouth. It's incredibly filthy, and it's very funny. So there you go. One more question, and I'm out.
Hey, Glenn just put us on the spot. We have no idea what to ask now.
Right. I was trying to figure where I would like to go after that. I guess one thing I would just like to tell you, but less so than ask you, is we just had Roy Thomas and Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends here at our local convention a couple weeks ago. And I was talking with those gentlemen, and I told them that we had you lined up to come on the show. And Tom DeFalco described you as the consummate professional. He said, that man gets a deadline, he will meet it, and it will be good every time.
It's true.
And Roy Thomas said the exact same thing. He said you could depend on Howard Chaykin to do what he said he was going to do every time. And that's just
I will not dispute that at all. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't want to ever be identified as an imposter. Quite seriously, I take very seriously my sense of self. I don't derive any of my self-esteem from the approval of others. But I also believe that one of the conditions that you accept working in the comic book business is that time is an element of your future, and you're a function. If you're working corporately, if you're working for a corporate enterprise, you're a cog of that corporation. I'll close with this: that first day of that Marvel seminar consisted of me beating the hobbyism out of young talent. That If you are doing the same thing you did when you stayed up all night drawing comics on your mother's cutting board, but now you're being paid to do it. And once you start accepting money for this, you got to basically shape the fuck up. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy because I have such a reputation for being such an obnoxious asshole. But the reality is, I'm an obnoxious asshole who is responsible and dependable, who has had a career of 50 some odd years. And that's a big deal. It requires effort. There's only one other guy in the comic book business of my generation who's still doing work that's not a parody of itself, and that's Walter. So, and Walter's a much nicer person than I am, so it's okay. Yeah. Alan, Josh, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
It was wonderful talking with you. Thank you so much.
And I'm assuming I'll see one or both of you sometime on campus at some show or another. Come on,
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. We like to get out shows.
When I go to conventions, I'll close with this. When I go to conventions, my job is to understand that the convention is my client, and the conventioners are my clients' customers, and I'm there to be engaged with you. So come on by.
We absolutely will. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, guys. Stay warm and dry. We'll see you on campus.
Awesome. You have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, guy.
All right. So we hardly spoke during all of that, and for many reasons. I felt like right out of the gate, we got beat up pretty good.
Well,
and I get it. I get it. But then, man, there was just some stuff in there that was absolutely awesome. Comic book foundational, how it should be. The use of the page, all that stuff. He's dead right.
Oh, yeah, he's dead right. Here's my thoughts on it. I thought he was joking at first. It's obvious that he was not joking. He does not like Star Wars. If you ever watch this back, this is just us being nerds. There was no false pretenses intended on getting you here to talk about Star Wars. That was actually one of the last things we wanted to talk about.
It didn't even occur to me until today.
Yeah, actually, it occurred to me last night. So I wasn't too far ahead of you. My whole thing is, I think that once you get past that hard exterior and once you get past the colorful language, he is a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely.
I literally just sat here and learned stuff and was forced to think about things a different way that I had never thought about. There were some things that he said that I didn't agree with, but at the same time, we're not going to agree with everyone, just like everyone's not going to agree with us. It's part of being an adult. You accept it and move on. I would love to have that aspect of him back sometime to talk about the history and the way things changed. Honestly, him talking about that stuff was some of the favorite things that we've heard on this show, period. I mean, it was really good.
Yeah, I told you when he agreed to come on that we're going to blow our PG-13 rating out of the water in the first 5 minutes. I think we did it in the first 10 seconds. Yeah. But you know what? I don't care. Phenomenal information you cannot get anywhere else. And the guy has got so much at his fingertips. Just amazing. That was mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, there's questions. If we'd have had more time, there's questions that I would like to have asked about the artistic process, because, and we've talked about it before. We talked about it with like Nick and Dustin, and you and I have talked about it. When you look at some of those early Silver Age comics with Stan Lee was so wordy. I mean, he really
their text. Yeah,
anybody that's read those early comics that he did, you understand what I'm talking about. Stan Lee could have very easily written novels. I mean, he was so wordy with some of his stuff. And I guess one of my questions, if we'd have had more time, would have been, how does that affect the artist when you're dealing with someone like that? And how does it affect an artist like Howard? Do you have to work more with the writer at that point and say, hey, look, we kind of need to tone this back some because I've at least got to draw your character doing a backflip. I don't need you describing it as much as you want to. I've still got to have room to do it.
Yeah, that much is apparent. And anybody who's not following him on Facebook, you absolutely should, because he shares stories all the time that are just amazing of people from the personal side of things, where you're like, okay, that's a name that I know, and I have this certain mental image of this person, and I connect them with certain work. And he tells stories that absolutely humanize those people, for good or for ill. He doesn't pull his punches. But it's phenomenal reading, and you look at it and you go, like, kind of like he said, it's real people doing things to other people, for good or for ill.
And see, and I like hearing those stories. I like hearing them from someone like his perspective, because you got to think we are at an age and we're of a generation to where the people that he's talking about, the people that he's worked with, they're like legendary to us. You know, I mean, they're kind of like up on a pedestal where we really and truly don't know if that person, like he said, they're an asshole. That person could be an asshole. We would never know. So I do love hearing those stories. I love listening to old men talk because they have no filter whatsoever. It is great.
You've got a little bit of a head start on that.
Yeah, that is the one thing I'm looking forward to when I hit about my 70s is everybody's going to expect my filter to be completely gone, and I'm working on that now. I would like to get a head jump, but I still try to filter myself because I do have kids.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that was phenomenal. I don't know if he'd be willing to come back on sometime, but I'd love to have him back on sometime to talk about some of these things, because just mind blowing. He's got so much knowledge at his fingertips. Just absolutely blew me away.
Yeah, when he talked about basically, and I'm just paraphrasing here, that basically he works with geometry. That's the way he views it. That's the way he does it. I never thought of it that way. Never did. I mean, I loved hearing him talk about that stuff because, like I said, it forced me to look at comics a little bit differently. Yes, Nick, wowzers. That's probably a really good word to use tonight. But yeah, I would love to have him back on sometime to talk about that, to talk about the artistic process and the way he goes through it. Hey, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Josh handles the Facebook page and all that, and I do all the YouTube stuff. So go check out what I'm doing on YouTube. We have a lot of fun there.
We do indeed. I don't like you said. I there are things he said I agreed with. There are things he said that I didn't agree with. So that's on Twitch, so we can't delete that.
Yeah, I want to. Well, you know what? Let's just peel the curtain back and talk about this for a second. I do want to look into some of the Discord stuff and see exactly what's going on there.
Yeah,
because I know there's like a lot of creators on Discord.
There are.
Maybe try to branch out there some. And you know what? Y'all laugh at me if you want to. I've never been on Discord. I have no idea what it's all about. But, we don't really do a lot on Twitch. So maybe drop Twitch and go with Discord.
I may just do that. Hey, appreciate you being on, Steve. Thank you, sir.
Oh, and Steve, I know you're a little bit too kind-hearted to do this, but I did let Nick know how mad you were having to deal with that tripod. We all understand that you had to make 2 trips, and it was not
sacrifices.
Thank you for doing that. I'll take care of Nick for you. I'll handle your light work.
Well, see, Momo Clicks is telling us that's amazing. And while we have this opportunity, you see Momo Clicks Photography here. They do awesome work. It's fantastic. They are going to be at Haven for Free Comic Book Day doing photos for anybody there in cosplay. So what I want to tell you is if you were considering coming out in your cosplay, for the love of God, do it. You'll get great photos. So show up. This is awesome.
I've got an idea. And we cannot, there's only one way we could blow our rating even worse tonight, and that's not going to happen. How about we send Momo Clicks a link right quick, get them on, and they can talk about exactly what they do and how they're going to do it this weekend.
I don't know. Would you come on? Would you be willing to do that?
And we'll see if your face really is red.
That's what I'm saying. See how red can a face get? Let me...
What have I done over here? Oh.
I don't know. What have you done?
Oh, I'm checking the YouTube stuff. I'm in a nightcap. Well, I mean,
Well,
I'm bald and fat. You can't get much worse than that. You'll be fine.
but all right, so guys, you don't get a chance to get somebody who shoots and it's been shooting pictures of people doing cosplay for a while and knows exactly how to do shoot good pictures of folks.
Welcome to my life.
You're fine. Don't worry
Now
about
you
it.
know how I felt in the first 3 minutes of the interview tonight. I don't know what to do.
Just sit there and take it, man. That's what you got to do. But seriously, this is somebody who knows how to shoot photos of people in cosplay and does some great work. Been doing it for a while, has a great reputation in town. Just if you have got any cosplay at all and you're considering coming out for Free Comic Book Day, do it. Just come out and get your picture taken. It's going to be fun. Let's talk about Free Comic Book Day. There's going to be free comics. There's going to be the Baskin Robbins ice cream truck is going to be there. If you've got a cosplay of, say, I don't know, Spider-Man, I'd love to see somebody in Spider-Man cosplay eating Baskin Robbins ice cream. If you've got Ant-Man, even better. Employee of the month. I want to see that. Momo Clicks Photography is bringing Pokemon cards to give out. How cool is that? Guys, this is getting better and better. We have we're doing a food drive, so bring out canned goods, non-perishable, shelf-stable food. Bring that out. Every single item you bring counts as an entry into our raffle. And we've got some awesome raffle prizes. We've got gift cards to Marco's Pizza because we buy enough pizza from them that they would feel bad if they didn't give us gift cards for our charity raffle. We've got a slab coming in from Spinner Rack, a slab comic that I just checked the price on, and it's selling for about $200.
That's cool.
So,
yeah. I don't know what slab you're talking about, but that picture's cool.
Right?
Yep.
We have
on here one way.
We have a signed Anakin Skywalker Funko Pop signed by the voice actor at the expo just 2 weeks ago, donated by the expo. So that's awesome. We have a awesome Super Mario Brothers quilt that was handmade by a local artisan, Christine May. That's going to be cool. Haven is giving away some things. It's Free Comic Book Day. You get free comics. You get to support a local food bank in Manor House. That this is a really tough time of year for them. Historically, everybody thinks about them at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but at about this time of year, their stores start to run low. So this is a great time for us to do this event and bring things into them. I have made this challenge for 4 years now. And okay, I went and I bought a bigger vehicle, so that's not all on y'all. But I have made the challenge. Force me to rent a truck to carry all this food over to Manor House. I want you to force me to rent a truck to carry all this food to Manor House. Bring stuff out for this. It's a great cause. It stays here locally. It supports people in North Alabama who are our neighbors who having a bad spell and they need help. They need food. And if you can't help folks that way and you have the means, come on. It's the least that we can do. People need to eat. So you need to come out. You need to do that. But we got free comics. We got an ice cream truck. We got photographer there who's going to be shooting pictures. Jeremy Brunna is going to be set up out front doing sketches for folks. So you want to come out, get a sketch on Free Comic Book Day. It's just going to be a massive party. And if y'all are up there, you know if you've been there on Saturdays before, you know there's usually a 7-year-old's birthday party at Haven every Saturday. Anyway, we have. It's about the truth, isn't it? You walk in on a Saturday, there's pizza, there's some kind of cookies or brownies or cake or something, and enough Mountain Dew to float a horse.
What was it? We were literally sitting there one Saturday morning, and was it Kay Lisa that come walking in and just puts like a platter of scones in front of us, and we're just like, nobody said a word about it. They just automatically started taking one, just eating. I mean, it was like fat people united over the scones really quick.
I'm telling you, it's a 7-year-old's birthday party at Haven every Saturday. And Free Comic Book Day is like that on steroids. So come out. If you were thinking about it, do it. If you weren't thinking about it, think about it and then do it. But come out Saturday and make it a hugely successful day, because it's going to be awesome. There's some great free comics this year too. Was one of the things we were going to talk about. The DC Free Comic Book Day book is the prelude to Dawn of DC and kicking things off there. So you want to get in on the ground floor of what DC is doing with this kind of soft relaunch. Come on out. Yeah, as Kaylisa says, we feed you good at Haven.
And we will be going live, so be prepared.
True that.
If you're not local, make sure you hit the notification bell and everything on YouTube, and you can see at least what we got going on this Saturday. I am going for the Free Comic Book Day list, and we can just kind of show off what's going to be free this year.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Oh, let me know I wanted that one.
The other thing I was going to talk about, we talked a little bit about Jim Lee becoming the president of DC at the beginning. And for anybody who doesn't know other big comic news, IDW laid off, I believe, somewhere in the ballpark of 70% of their staff. And they were pulled off of the stock market. They were a traded company, and now they are not anymore. They have reorganized, they're reshuffling. They say that they're committed to giving it the 100%, although that's 70% less than it was last week. And that they're going to keep putting out good comics and all that stuff. We shall see. They still have Star Trek. They still have My Little Pony. They still have Sonic. They still got the Birch Book, Breath of Shadows. They have several other creator-owned elements there that haven't taken off very well. We'll see what happens there, but IDW is definitely a company to keep an eye on right now. They're in tough shape.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I am enjoying, even just take the fact that Birch is a friend of ours out of it. I am enjoying Breath of Shadows, but IDW, what'd you expect? You let G.I. Joe and Transformers get away.
Yeah, you let G.I. Joe go, you might as well just fold up to 10. I mean, let's be honest. It was 94, 95 when Marvel lost the license to G.I. Joe, or they closed the chapter on that book. And what happened after that? Marvel declared bankruptcy.
Yep.
So yeah, if you get a hold of G.I. Joe, don't let it go. That's word to the wise.
Like some top level Image people on here, particularly from Skybound, because I need to know
Robert Kirkman.
Do what?
Robert Kirkman.
Yeah. I need to needle them on if they're getting G.I. Joe or not. We need to find out what's going on. We've gone too long without a G.I. Joe comic book, especially with that ending.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've tried reaching out to Larry Hama. I just haven't heard back yet. I am desperate to hear back from Larry Hama, because you can't end a story like that with a massive freaking cliffhanger and a tease on top of that.
So I don't know if this is going to give us everything, but it's at least going to give us some of the bigger books that are going to be free this Saturday. I don't care. Stop.
Amazing Spider-Man and Venom.
Well, I mean,
Venom with chains for some reason.
Completely and totally trashed their paid book, so I don't see why the free one would be any different.
Y'all, have you paid attention to what they're saying about Amazing Spider-Man number 26?
No,
Marvel has recommended that the writer for this book not do any shows or anything for the foreseeable future, as they think that it would be very bad for his health.
Wow, what's going on in 26?
Apparently, they're killing off a major character. I suspect it's going to be Mary Jane.
Yeah, I don't see a point in doing that. I really don't.
I don't either.
If they wanted to kill off a major character, they should do the comic form of the person who's made the decisions in the Spider-Man universe and let Spider-Man take that person out.
Yeah, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man has been a travesty.
It was losing me before the Beyond storyline, but Beyond was just, and the bad thing about it is I enjoyed the character Ben Reilly. I like Scarlet Spider. I wish we had an ongoing Scarlet, let me rephrase that, a good ongoing Scarlet Spider series. But they just didn't do any of it justice. I mean, the best part of Beyond was when basically Peter is slipping into the coma and Ben is walking away, and you kind of get the transition of one Spider-Man letting go and the next Spider-Man taking his place. I thought that was very well done. Other than that, it was garbage.
Yeah, I
am looking forward to Night Terrors right here.
All right, so let's talk about that, because I just made up the sign-up sheet for next month, right? And here's the deal. Dawn of DC, this kind of soft relaunch of DC, is going to be 2 months in, right? It's building up some momentum. It's getting generally positive feedback from people. And people are looking forward to and excited about it. So then what? 2 months into Dawn of DC, they're stopping the presses on every series and doing a special 2-month event called Night Terrors. So for 2 months, Batman is not going to be Chip Zdarsky Batman. It's going to be Night Terrors. Nightwing is not going to be Tom Taylor. It's going to be Night Terrors. Why? You've got good momentum going. You've got people interested, and you're going to stop it before you even had a chance to get started.
Yep.
I don't understand.
If anything, what they should have done is they should have let this be like an Elseworlds event and run alongside it. But honestly, let me take that back. That's not fair for me to say, because I don't know how much is going to happen in Night Terrors that's going to play out into the future DC.
From what I can tell, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be this kind of encapsulated 2-month event. We know what it reminds me of. Do you ever have flashbacks back to Convergence?
Yeah.
Which was terrible, right? They stopped all the DC books for 2 months while they moved from New York to Los Angeles, and they did Convergence, which was 2 months of pure unadulterated garbage.
Yep.
Now, the only saving grace here is that Joshua Williamson is also the architect behind Night Terrors.
I am looking forward to see what they do.
Maybe he's got something here. I want to see what he's going to do, but I'm not real. None of the solicits have sold me on this being a good idea.
Well, I mean, I'll definitely be picking up certain aspects of Night Terrors just because I love a good horror story. Is it going to literally encompass every single title that they're doing, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Every title they're doing is taking 2 months off and doing Night Terrors.
Oh God, DC, why?
It's a bad idea. I don't see the value in it. I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I'd be happy to be wrong. I just don't know that I am, and we'll find out. It starts off here pretty soon. So
I do kind of want to check out this Cursed Library. I want to see what this is going to be about.
Well, you know what? You can check it out for the low price of free.
Oh, I will definitely be checking it out.
If you show up with your media badge, we might let you have more than 3 comics for free.
I tell you what, I bust out that media badge. I need to get in at least an hour early and first dibs on whatever K-Lisa bakes.
That's probably fair. I think we can do that.
I'm not scrolling any further because I don't know what's going to pop up on that screen. That looks like it was all it was really showing.
Yep.
But as far as Dawn of DC is concerned, I do want to throw this out here right quick. We do have a video releasing. I got the premiere set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. For anybody that's interested, go jump to YouTube, hit the notification bell. And it is basically the, what we talk about here, except it's literally just me talking about the comics. And I do talk about this one some. I had no intentions of picking this book up last week. And it was one of those, I'm not going to get it. Hey, that cover looks pretty cool. I'm not going to get it. Well, let me just go on and grab it and see what it's about. And that was Dawn of DC, Green Arrow #1. I was pleasantly surprised. This was a good book. It was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. It's only going to be 6 issues, and it's going to kind of give you an idea of the direction that this character's going in, which I don't know a ton about Green Arrow. He was never a character that I was really into. The majority of everything that I know about him was from the Stephen Amell TV show. And I don't even know how comic accurate that is.
Not very, but what I understand about this particular book is it's a good blend of the two.
Yeah,
I participated in a DC retailers roundtable discussion last week. I can't reveal which was talked about there just because that's unprofessional to do that, because that was a frank and honest conversation between retailers and DC. The good, the bad, the ugly, the whole 9 yards. It was a very good conversation. I will say this: DC asked a lot of good questions. Now, whether they listened to the answers that we gave them or not is a whole nother thing. But they asked good questions, and I'll give them this. They had these roundtables scheduled with us. I hadn't seen anything like that from Marvel. Right. But one of the things that they did say, which I think is okay to repeat from that discussion, was about that book you just held up, the Green Arrow #1. And they described that as being the confluence of Green Arrow from the comics and Green Arrow from the show, as those two things coming together into one book. And they thought it was pretty successful, and they were pretty pleased with it. And some of the retailers who had read preview copies seemed to echo that was the case. So I'm glad to hear that you liked what you read.
Yeah, in all honesty, they should be pleased with it. Like I said, I hadn't planned on picking it up. It was a last-minute grab off the shelf. I want to say there was just a couple of copies left. There wasn't that many copies left of it. That's always a good sign. I think I read somewhere it's only going to be like 6 issues. And I think it's definitely going to be 6 issues worth picking up. I mean, and I understand what they're saying about being a blend. Like I said, I don't know a ton about the comic version of Green Arrow, but I did watch the entire Arrowverse series. And you definitely see elements of that in here. You definitely, and not just in the story itself, but in the way Green Arrow is drawn. And then a couple of references that he make, and especially the way he looks at the end of the book. And a part of me, the way he looks at the end of the book, a part of me was like, well, that was just straight up Stephen Amell right there. So I did enjoy that. It's a #1. So, and you do not have to know anything about the character. I mean, you really don't. This is almost a fresh start for anybody.
You shouldn't have to know about anything about a character for the first issue of a comic book.
Yeah.
They should tell you everything you need to know in the pages of that book.
And it's literally what they do. And for the longtime fans of Green Arrow, there's moments in this book that you're going to enjoy because it's stuff that you already know. For the casual fan and for the non-fan, the way it's written and the way it's described, you instantly know, hey, there's a backstory here. I understand something. I understand what's going on. You're not lost in the sauce, so to speak. I mean, you'll get it. It's definitely worth picking up. And hey,
I'm looking forward to reading that. But speaking of Green Arrow, I do have to say this: the short that you threw up of that Mike Grell Black Canary cover that we've got at the shop.
Yeah,
that sketch cover that Mike Grell did. I don't know the effects you put on that short. With the radiating lines and all that, the sound, the music choice, that is one of my favorite shorts that you have done, bar none. It was perfection. I loved it.
So that effect, I've used it one other time, and I used it on the signed copy of X-Men by one that's signed by Stan Lee.
Yeah.
That was actually in one of the editing tools that I found, but that song literally was the only song that come to mind. So
it's perfect. It couldn't.
Yeah, it was like, okay,
better.
I've got to go with that one.
Oh yeah, her sonic scream. There you go. It was perfect. Yeah, no, that was great. So what else you got on the pull list this week?
Oh, I got a healthy stack.
Okay, your pull list looks a little bit smaller than mine, but yeah, that's not too far off. This was a big week.
Yeah, I'll run through these fairly quick because we're already closing in on an hour and 20. We've already covered Dawn of DC, Green Arrow 1. This was a really good read for the casual fan, a really good read for the longtime fan. I'm enjoying what Josh Williamson is doing so far with DC, period, to be honest with you. I'm literally just going to go off the top of the stack. The video releasing tomorrow, I do go into a little more detail about some of these comics. Green Arrow, Daredevil number 10. I told Josh before we went on live that it literally come down to 2 words, and one of them is holy. Y'all can figure out what the second one is. This was, my God. I mean, wow. Just wow. Just when you think that Chip Zdarsky cannot get any better, he does. There are sacrifices made in this book. There is a conversation between Spider-Man and Daredevil that it does kind of get to you, and then Spider-Man has a moment in the book. Josh hasn't read it yet, so I'm not going to go into a ton of details. I don't want to ruin it for him. Check out the video at 9 a.m. I do go into some details, and I do show a panel of Spider-Man in the book, and the art, beautiful. The story, beautiful. Yeah. Everything works perfectly in this one. Chip Zdarsky is not a writer. Chip Zdarsky is a storyteller, and that's exactly what he's doing with Daredevil. I'm going to be devastated when his run comes to an end. Next up, we have Vanish, issue number 6. Y'all, Oliver's got some issues. Oliver needs to sort through his issues, and Oliver's life is going to change drastically, and you find that out toward the end of the book, and it's got nothing to do with magic. The pairing of Donny Cates and Ron Stegman is absolutely perfect on this book. They complement each other very well. Stegman is capturing everything that Donny Cates is doing. It's just, honestly, this ranks up there. I loved God Country by Donny Cates. This ranks up there with God Country. Definitely not for children or anything, especially the beginning pages. And when you read it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's not like sexual or anything like that, but it's definitely dark and morbid. For people like me, it was just kind of like a page turner. Really good stuff. Next up, we have Wildcats, issue number 6. There was a semi-guest appearance. He was in several pages of a certain character. Backlash. I'm sorry. Backlash. Yeah, it was great seeing him. It really was. This one right here.
Did you reach out to Brett Booth about it?
No, I have not reached out to Brett Booth about it. I was excited to see Backlash. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book is we've now got so for those of you that don't know, Spartan is an android. Spoiler alert, he has been for a while.
30 years. Yeah.
There is something called the Death Blow Initiative, to where every time Death Blow dies, they can basically reinsert his consciousness into another body, and he just keeps going. That's just the nutshell version for people that aren't reading it. They have taken Death Blow's consciousness and put him. Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Oh, dude.
So,
holy cow.
Spartan with Death Blow's conscious. Superman might have a rival. I mean, it's that's going to be a hell of a fight once that eventually happens.
Yeah,
Is it going to happen? I don't know. But yes, Superman has been in a couple of issues of Wildcats. Clark Kent was definitely in this one. The big takeaway, though, is you find out Cole is back and Grifter is about to. Grifter literally does what Grifter does at the end of this book. And it's one of those that after he does it, even the reader is going, dude, I think you might have messed up now. I think you might have really done something this time.
Oh, you done messed yourself up.
Yeah, you don't. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. So yeah, Wildcat 6, Backlash back. It was nice seeing him. Deathblow / Spartan. I need like a mini series of just that alone. That was great. Tales from Nottingham, number 3 by Mad Cave Studios. This one is for anybody that's reading Tales of Nottingham. These are really companion pieces, is what I'm calling them. We get a story of Maid Marian in this. Everybody that's reading Nottingham knows that Maid Marian is a chess player among checker players. They have given her a whole new persona and a whole new dynamic that we really haven't seen anywhere else before. We see more of that in this issue. I love what they've done with Maid Marian. She's not just a damsel in distress. I mean, Maid Marian is a force to be reckoned with. And you see her ability to lie and her, for lack of a better word, connivingness in this issue. I thought this was very well done. Cannot get enough of Nottingham. I hope this runs for Mad Cave for years to come. Feel good book. Dungeons and Dragons issue number 2 by IDW. It's like reading the cartoon. You can't go wrong. It really is. That's about all I can say about it. The team is not on the same page. We automatically know they're not getting home in this series. That's just not happening. I think that's what makes it even better, is because there are a couple of references to them getting home, but you as the reader understand, nah, buddy, you're not going anywhere. You're stuck. Deal with it. The team, like I said, the team's not on the same page. They're just not, vibing. That's all there is to it. It's been fun so far. I'm looking forward to more. Dead Romans, issue number 2. Wow.
That was my favorite cover of the bunch too. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, that is a great cover. Wow. I'm not going to insult anyone by trying to pronounce the names of the characters in here. That's just not going to happen. But basically, the Romans are surrounded, but they're not being attacked. It is a tactic that is being applied. Some people don't like that this tactic is being applied. Others are like, no, trust me, we've got to do this. This is historically accurate. I mean, if you want to jump ahead and find out how the battle ends, just Google it. But I like the fact that our main female lead in this particular book, she's on a mission, and she's going to complete her mission, period, point blank. That's what she's been tasked with. You're definitely starting to see the forest come into play now, as far as it being like almost like a legend of a haunted forest or something, even though it's not haunted. You're definitely starting to see a little bit more of that in this issue. Kennedy has done a fantastic job writing this issue, and Markovich, I mean, I can't say enough stuff about his artwork in this. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Nick Rankovich, great artist.
And this is definitely, honestly, if we would have had more time with Howard, I would have told him pick this book up. You're tired.
I was going to tell him to pick up No One.
Yeah, No One, this book, and Red Zone. Those are 3 books that I think that he should check out that I feel like he would enjoy. Especially this one right here. This is...
I thought Devil's Highway, too.
Oh, God, yeah. So far, I mean, this is so far removed from the superhero genre, which is perfect. This book just works. Next up on my list, we have, and this book is actually a heartbreaking book, Trojan, number 4 of 4. And here's the reason why it's heartbreaking. It was a definitive end. There's nowhere left to go with the story.
Well, it was kind of pointing that direction.
Yeah. Could they bring these characters back? Yes, they could very easily bring these characters back. under a different title with an entirely different story. I would like to see the Furies later on down the road, since they are now completely reunited and they're back together. But as far as this actual story right here is concerned, I say it in the video tomorrow. I hate this book because it ended. I mean, it's literally, this was so well done. It's, if you're not reading it, it's really hard to explain. If you don't like dark and gritty and a little bit of gothic horror, you're not going to like this book. If you do like that,
That's a dark book for sure. That's
yeah,
a dark,
if you do
dark
like that
book.
stuff, you're going to love this book. The name Trojan is actually, it's very misleading, but it's meant to be misleading because she's basically employing the Trojan horse method.
Yep.
I mean, that's literally where the name of the book comes from. And it was absolutely brilliant that they named the book that way. I love this issue from the first page of issue 1 to the last page of issue 4. When the trade comes out, if you're local, go talk to Josh. If you're not local, get to your LCS and check this book out. This is what I expect. As bad as I hate to say it, this is what I expect from AWA every single time now. Then you would love this book.
If you like the dark and gritty, that's a tough book to read. It's a very
especially
tough book
that
to
first
read.
issue.
That first issue was hard to read, and then the end was just heartbreaking and soul crushing. And then you get through the second issue, and it's like, okay, where is this going? Holy crap! And the third issue is like, okay, it's there. Oh my god! Yeah, it's a tough series to read. It's very, very difficult, but it's good. It's powerful.
Yeah, and that's, you know what? That's a great word. It's powerful. Hey, what happened?
To what?
All of my screens just went dead. But they're back now. But yeah, I don't know if all 4 issues are still up at the shop, Momo.
I don't think that they are.
Yeah, they we kind of.
But I might be able to order those. I'll check on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you like dark and gritty, you're going to love it.
Let's pause for a second while we're talking about collected volumes of things, right?
Yep.
So, Batman Joker Deadly Duo number 7, the last book of that series is this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next month's solicitations, they solicit the deluxe hardcover collection of that book. I don't often decide to pick up a hardcover for a series that I've got the issues of, but I'll be darned if I'm not picking up this one, because I know I'm going to want to read it again, and I'm not going to want to fish those issues out of the bags and boards and boxes. So I'm going to get that hardcover. So if you guys want the hardcover for that, now is the time to order it. It will be available. It's only $20.99 or $29.99 for a hardcover, and the hardcovers usually run at least $10 more than that. And it's got all 7 issues. Yep, I think I already got you down on the list.
What about trades? Is there? Have they got you solicitations for the trades yet?
The trades usually follow hardcovers by about 3 months.
Okay, because I want to get. I mean, guys, I enjoyed that series so much. We're going to give a trade away on the show one night when they come in. I mean, that was just a great series.
Phenomenal book. But yeah, speaking of collected editions, if you guys want to be put down for the collected edition of that, just let me know, and we'll make sure to get you added to it. So what else? What else you got?
So I've got 3 new and then a throwback pick.
Throwback.
This one right here, I don't know how many people are reading this. I'm assuming that there's still a following because they're still putting out content. But we have Alien #1. For those of you that are not following this, basically what Marvel/Disney, the House of Mouse, what they've done is once they purchased 20th Century Fox and purchased a lot of those properties, they started putting out Alien books again. They're doing it a little bit differently, though. They're kind of following like the AWA Mad Cave format.
It's the Dark Horse format. It's what Dark Horse did when they had Alien.
Yeah, we'll get like roughly 6 issues, and then we get a little bit of a break. We'll get 6 issues. We'll get a little bit of a break.
Here's what's killing me about that, though.
Yeah,
when Dark Horse did it. It was Aliens Song of the Spears, aliens facing predators, aliens, whatever. Each one had a name, right?
Yep.
So you knew what you were doing. With Marvel, it's just 1 through 6, 1 through 6, and there's no name to differentiate. So it's impossible to know which issue am I missing? Is it that series, that series, that series? It's a real pain in the neck.
Yeah, it
I wish that
really
they would
is.
fix that.
I think that once you get into it, though, you'll start to understand it. But the thing is, we've got different main characters throughout each one. I mean, ultimately, we're reading this for the Xenomorphs. We're reading this for the face huggers. We all know that Wayland Yuta is not a good company. We all know that they're definitely up to something. Once again, it's fun. I mean, if you're a fan of the Alien franchise on any level, pick these books up. And the reason why I say that is I'll hold it up again. They're staying true to the Alien franchise. They're giving us Alien stories. They're not giving us the Marvel version or the Disney version of Alien. They're literally giving us the Ridley Scott version of Alien. And that's what I've enjoyed most about these. It fits right in with the movies. It's a story that fits right in. It's canon. I mean, exactly what's going on. It's been really good. So yeah, if you like aliens on any level, this one just came out. The whole premise is there is a family of 3, mother's expecting. So a family of 4, they're waiting on the company that they work for to come pick them up because they're actually on a frozen planet that they've been searching for water to possibly inhabit one day. And they come across a face hugger. And as soon as they come across the face hugger, hey, guess who shows up? Wayland Yuta. And they find out that basically once their transmission went out to tell their company, hey, this is what we found. Y'all need to come get us now so we can basically dissect and go over this discovery. Guess what Wayland Yuta does? They immediately step in and buy the company that these people work for. Typical Wayland move. Great read. Like I said, if you love Alien, if you like it on any level, just check it out. Next up, we have Dawn of DC Action Comics 1054.
Love that cover.
Yeah,
God,
this is
a great cover.
This is a great cover. It was fun watching Superman try to basically, for lack of a better word, reach Metallo and try to help him instead of just beating him senseless. That was a fun aspect of this book. But what I liked even more about it was the fact that John feels like the twins have run off because of him. One of them is hurt and he feels like it's his fault. And he feels like he's the one that should go find them and basically rescue them. I like the family aspect of it. I really like what they're doing with the super family in here in this particular, actually the past couple of issues. This one's actually written by Johnson. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out with Williamson's Superman. Will they continue just side by side? Are they going to start trying to kind of mirror some of the same things? We're not seeing that with Detective, which is up next, and Batman. So I'm expect we would not see that here. But one thing that I did not like about this was I believe there was 4 stories in here, 3 or 4. And by the time I got to the last one, which involved Steel, I had kind of lost interest. I know it is Action Comics. Some people are they do want the multiple stories. I would rather just have a solid Superman book. Maybe Supergirl to be the secondary story, or even the secondary story focused solely on the family. I think that would be a really good direction, but that's my personal opinion. If you don't agree, send all hate email to nick@twobrothers.com. Next up, we have Detective Comics 1071. This particular issue, we find out what Talia was telling Bruce all about. And it's basically him remembering the story that she told him. It is a backstory that involves Ra's al Ghul, and it was perfectly written. Each and every single issue of Detective that comes out, Ram V gets better with every issue. The story has truly taken on a life of its own. I don't think we've really seen anything done like this with Detective Comics in the past. And I think he's doing a phenomenal job. He took over. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. He was taking a lot of pictures of me at the expo. Just saying.
How did he get that kind of picture? That's what I want to know.
It's not. He's obsessed with my bald head. I don't understand it. I mean, he could have a bald head too. He knows what it takes.
He's working on it.
I know. He'll get there. He'll be one of me one day. But like I said, this is mainly Bat. Yeah, they're kind of setting up an invasion that the Bat family's about to do. They're about to go in full force and start fighting some folks. But it's really about a backstory of Ra's al Ghul, him remembering what Talia told him. You're getting a lot more of how this family came to power and what all's going on with it. Now, I want to point something out. What you see on the cover, if you read this book, this cover makes so much sense. This is one of those books that the cover applies directly to the story. And I think that that's just great. The runes that you see here, the two figures, it's, if you're reading it, you understand this cover. I love it when they do stuff like that. I really do.
I love that cover in general. I like the graphic design of it and the way that they use the buildings and the white space to make the bat shape. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and so we'll point out another thing right quick. When I first saw this cover, I'm sitting there thinking, why is it all brown? Why did they go? He's the Dark Knight. Why did they go this route with it? Once you read the issue, you'll understand. This was just the perfect cover for this issue. I can't say enough good. Like I said, I started out not liking Ram V and what he was doing, and now I am like full tilt on the bandwagon. Keep going, do your thing. I am in it till the end. And yeah, I just can't say enough good stuff about it.
I forget which book it is, but Ram V has a book coming out from Marvel in this month's previews that we're going to talk about next week.
Okay. Yeah. I might, wait a minute. Who is it?
I don't remember, but Ram V has got a book coming out from Marvel next week. I was putting together the sign-up sheet earlier. I just don't remember which book it is that he's doing.
Because honestly, could he save Spider-Man? Yeah, he could save Spider-Man. I think he could, if editorial gets out of his way and lets him do it. But I'm not saying he's doing Spider-Man. Don't anybody say anything just yet.
No, it's just a one-shot issue, I think. I don't think it's a series.
Oh, okay. Throwback pick of the week. We have All-Star Squadron number 47, the origin of Dr. Fate. I think technically this might be the second origin of Dr. Fate, but I'm not 100% on that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
But why is this cover special? It's a Todd McFarlane cover.
Yep.
It really is. Look at the names across the top. Roy Thomas, Todd McFarlane, Vince Coletta. It's just good, wholesome fun, kids. That's the only reason why it's the pick of the week. And honestly, while everybody else floods to Todd McFarlane to get him to sign Spawns and everything, I would probably get him to sign this one. Just because I want to be different.
That's fair.
Yep. So,
That's a good stack of comics you got there.
Do what?
It's a good stack of comics you got there.
That was definitely a healthy week. I challenge anybody to head up to Haven and outdo me.
I would like to see 7 or 8 people take you up on that challenge. Or 20. You guys can do it. Take him up on that challenge. I believe in you.
You can ask Tom. When I was up there Friday picking up my books, and I was like looking at the stuff on the wall, and I'm filming shorts and everything. I'd go grab something, and I'd be like, "Man, I need to quit. I'm spending too much money." Then I'd pick up another one. "Man, I need to quit. I'm spending too much money." You know, it's a good week when you can pack your store folio like that. That is 1 week's worth of comics in the store folio.
That is a good week.
Yeah, that was, and honestly, I think I've got another week like that this week.
Well, I know you got 2 books in there. One of them's the extra-sized Batman 135, which is also Batman 900, which is an oversized issue, and that looks great. And then you've got Batman Joker Deadly Duo #7. And I got to tell you, the Jock cover for that, which I've been getting the straight-up Silvestri covers for my personal collection, but the Jock cover, it's a white cover with a Joker smile.
Yep.
And either blood or lipstick forms the shape of the bat on this Joker smile. Yeah, I bet if you look it up, you can pull it up. It's fantastic. Oh, it's a gorgeous cover.
Let me let you in on a little secret that Tom and I do every once in a while.
I know where this is going.
Now, every once in a while on a Friday, we head to the back and we pull out the DC box.
That shows up usually that day or the day before for the following week, yes.
And we pull out everything on the DC box, and then I decide if I want to film a short based on what's coming out the next week. And I actually have a short of those 3 covers. I just haven't posted it yet.
Because it's amazing.
Oh, it's a beautiful cover. It really is. The covers, the for Batman 900, the Batman Catwoman cover, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful cover.
Yep.
The cover, oh crap. I can't remember who did it, but it's basically him like he's flying in down at an angle.
I don't remember who did that one either.
Yeah, that one was another gorgeous cover. It really was. Now, and I understand for them doing multiple covers for something like that. I mean, it's issue 900. Yeah, do multiple covers for something like that. But for issue 906, no, we don't need multiple covers.
No, we really don't. And people have cover fatigue, and the publishers don't seem to realize it. I think I would rather the publisher sell 2 different comics than 1 comic with 2 covers. If you're just desperate to print something, I realize it's cheaper to print the same interiors and just slap a different plate on and print different covers. I get that. But I'd rather have 2 solid comics than 1 comic with 2 covers any day of the week.
Yep.
Now, they both got to be good. I don't want 1 garbage comic and 1 great comic. I want 2 solid comics, 2 great comics if possible. But get rid of all these extra covers. All it does is make people confused. We get people in the shop all the time who are like, oh, why didn't I get this in my box? Like, well, because you got this cover.
Yep.
And people are confused over where they already have the book or not, because we've been programmed for the past umpteen years to look at the cover and go, I got that one. I got that one. I got that one. And when one book has got 27 different covers, how are you going to know? Like, how you can't memorize all those and go, oh, I got this. It's ridiculous.
Holy crap.
No, thank you.
Well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and share it. We'll give y'all a sneak peek right quick of what we'll be talking about soon. That's my pull list for this week.
Let me take a look here. Yeah, that Radiant Black 24, I'm really interested in that. I've been interested in that ever since we had Kyle Higgins on here to talk about the book and show all that stuff. And there's been a long list of, or Radiant Black 24 has already hit the list of things that have sold out. And he said it's never going to be reprinted. The Black Light special one.
Be reprinted?
Yeah, the Black Light reactive cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that he thinks about that. Yeah, I think that's something that maybe maybe Howard Chaykin wouldn't necessarily like the stories or whatever, but I think he would approve of some of the thought process that goes into what you can do with the comic book page that Kyle Higgins and his artists put into this stuff. So, because when he was on the show, remember how he talked about the use of light in the comic, and the different colors, and how they made the white light a particular way and the particular meaning that it had. And I think things like this, it's a gimmick, yeah, but I think that it has an actual narrative purpose in the story, right? But I think that's really cool.
Now I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Out of my pull list for next week, the Scarlet Witch, that's actually the Bugs, and I've already read Monomyth. If you're not picking up Monomyth next week, grab it. It really is a good book. I think it's got a lot of potential. It's definitely worth reading. But I'm, yeah, we've got the Batman. I'm looking forward to my entire pull list next week. But I'm especially looking forward to Skull and Bones.
I really enjoyed the first issue of that.
Yeah, I don't even know how many issues.
Nick, tell Dustin there's a good pirate book out right now. I think it's only supposed to be 3 issues.
Yeah, it's definitely good. And it's one of those that we're not getting tons of setup. They literally throw you into the middle of it. And
oh, yeah.
The who and all that, all we're getting is the what and the where and a little bit of the why. As far as the who is concerned, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, and by the way, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, and we all fighting. Let's do this. I like the way they've done it. I am looking forward. Wait a minute. Nope, that's week after next. It's not getting any better. But in 2 weeks, I get a slight break.
But look at what you got there, man. You got Fantastic Four, you got No One, you got Red Zone, and I know you're high on Gunslinger, which is awesome. And then you got Superman, which has been a refreshing turn of events. So that's a solid week right there. It's fewer books, but it's a solid week.
Yeah, this one is definitely quality and not quantity that week. But then I think after that, we're right back up there.
Man, Black Tape. Yeah, Dead Romans. Yeah, God, Exorcist Never Died. Yeah, this is good stuff. Hunt, Kill,
Repeat. That stuff's so
Nightwing. Good. Yeah, see, I again, we'll close out here in just a second, but I think I would be presumptuous of me to say this with any degree of like real belief, but I think I kind of get what Howard Chaykin was talking about with his frustration with the way the medium is used and with the storytelling. Now, he likes a good adult story, does Howard Chaykin, and I mean adult.
Yeah.
And he likes the real world stuff. He likes genre types or time period specific stuff. But he wants it real world. He doesn't want a bunch of capes and stuff. And I get it. That's fine. It's a different taste level. But I get his frustration, I think, with some of the lack of storytelling creativity that's on the page, because he's right. A page has infinite possibilities, and we get a lot of the same camera angle. It's a lot of the same stuff from book to book. And I get what he's saying there, but I appreciate a lot of the books you've got on your list are the same as the ones on my list. And I appreciate a lot of the work those guys do. There is some creativity there. There is some creative use of the panels and the pages to convey action and to tell a story. And I really like that. And I think I would disagree with him on the state of comics and on what he called the infantilization of the audience. I don't think that's necessarily true. I can certainly see that it has elements of truth, but I don't think it's as a totality as he thought, as he seems to think.
Yeah, and I don't think that he truly understands that there's some of us out there that, I mean, he can scream about reading all he wants. I guarantee you he doesn't read more than I do. And I'm not talking about just comic books. Y'all have no idea the extent of my reading habit. I mean, it's worse than a crackhead. My daughter is the same way. My wife is the same way. I mean, it's literally books, tablets, magazines, just about back of the shampoo bottle, just about anything we can get our hands on, we're reading. To me, I view comic books, that is my escapism. So I don't need the real and gritty all the time. I like the fantasy. Does the superhero have to be wearing a cape? No, they don't. Look at Trojan, for example. Trojan is dark and gritty. At the end of the day, the superhero is not wearing a cape. And to be quite honest with you, when she takes her full fury form, she's actually quite terrifying.
Oh, hideous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's for anybody that ever read Cabal or watched the movie Nightbreed by Clive Barker, he goes a little bit more into it in the novelization of it, because Cabal did come out before the movie. I highly recommend the book and not the movie. But it's basically Midian is where the monsters go, and the monsters aren't always bad guys. A lot of times the bad guys are the humans, and that's really what you see in Trojan. There is a twist at the end. I'm going to give you that. There is a twist. But ultimately, what's being done is being done for human benefit, because they're the ones that are dark. They're the ones that are twisted. They're the ones that's got something wrong with them, and not this hideous monster. This hideous monster is ultimately the superhero. So that's why I read these comic books. I read for that escapism. Even though it was dark, it was gritty, it was still escapism for me. You've got an idea of what I do for a living. I need to read Batman and Superman, to take my mind off other things. I need to see Daredevil on an island retraining Stiltman how to fight, to take my mind off other things. And I don't think that he truly understands that some of us actually need those aspects of comic books.
Well, I think he understands it. I just don't know that he appreciates it like we do.
I can see that.
Yeah, I get that. But he was a phenomenal guest to have on. I mean, we were both just sitting there like, quiet the whole time, like just hanging on every word, because he had so much great stuff to say.
When you can shut both of us up, you've done something.
Indeed. Uh-oh. Pandora's box being opened.
So I'm a huge Clive Barker fan. I think that Clive Barker, and you know what? Let's just go ahead and let the hate flow. I'm not a Stephen King fan. I think that his full-length novels are absolute garbage. I would rather read Stephen King's short stories. I think that's the realm that he should have stayed in. I love Anne Rice. God rest her soul. No one could write a descriptive novel like she can. Anybody that wants to challenge me on that, go read Blackwood Farm. Blackwood Farm, that entire book, you will honestly feel like you're on a plantation in Louisiana watching it play out in front of your eyes with a swamp in the background. So yeah, that's just two of them. Peter Straub, if you ever read the Blue Rose Murder series, it actually started with Coco, the Blue Rose Murders, and what was the third one? Or maybe the Blue Rose Murders. Oh, no, it was Coco, The Throat, and the Blue Rose Murders. Phenomenal. Yes, Peter Straub, Mike Wazlowski. Yeah, dude, love Peter Straub. If you don't want a trilogy, Nick, go check out Shadowland. Now, Nick, do keep in mind, this is straight up. It's not horror like you would see on the TV screen. It's more psychological horror with Peter Straub. As far as Clive Barker is concerned, the book that you would want to read by him is The Thief of Always. The Thief of Always was so perfectly written that college lit professors started adding it to their required reading. It's more of like, they say that the reading level is 9th grade and above. It was kind of like his attempt at a children's book, even though it's really not a children's book. Young adults would definitely love it. So yeah, as far as Clive Barker is concerned, stay away from Scarlet Gospels if you ever want to sleep again, because even that one disturbed me, and I loved every minute of it. But pick up The Thief of Always. I think there might even been a graphic novel done out of The Thief of Always. But yeah, those are just a couple. There's oh crap. I cannot think of his name. He only writes ebooks though, and he's writing the Dylan Kane series, Delta Force Unleashed, and there was another one that's like a shared universe. It was a professor. Cannot think of his name right now. I'll text you and let you know that one. I think you would like those. And then what's another big one that I'm reading?
You need to be reading A Gathering of Ravens and Twilight of the Gods because the Doom of Odin is about to come out, and you need to be caught up.
Okay, I will check those out.
By my buddy Scott Odin. I've been trying to get him to come on the show forever, and it's just been a nightmare. But yeah, needs to happen. Some good Lord of the Rings adjacent books. Okay. Yeah, I've got shelves full of those that I could recommend to you. We just don't need to do it on the air right now. You hit the high bar with Tolkien, and very few people can come even close to that. So you'll just have to get over that. There's still some amazing books, but
I know I never read it, but a friend of mine, he went really deep into that Wheel of Time series.
Wheel of Time started off really, really well. Really, really well. Then it did like this and just sagged, and it drooped under its own weight. The case I use all the time is one of the main three characters at the end of book 7 had a wall fall on him, and in book 8 he didn't get mentioned or have anything about him. You knew nothing about him until the very end of book 8. There was a little bit of a snippet. He spent an entire book trapped under a wall. And these books are all this thick.
Yep.
Other problems that I had was like going into book 10 and 11. You would think Robert Jordan was getting paid by the word. He would have these prologues that would open the book up, which would be 150 pages introducing new characters in books 10 and 11. Like, what are you doing? Cut to the story, man. And then sure enough, he died before he could finish the series. And so they brought in Brandon Sanderson to finish it. And he turned the last book into 3 books because to get everything in there that Robert Jordan wanted, you had to.
Yeah.
It's a very good series. And the last books that Brandon Sanderson did, like, snapped it back onto target and was like, that was really good. Brandon Sanderson's got several books that are phenomenal. His first book, I wanted to like it. It was just really difficult for me to read. Elantris, I did not care for it. Brandon Sanderson is one of those writers who he's a storyteller. He's a better storyteller than he is a writer. Because he has these things where he sets a mood, he establishes a setting, but then he breaks it all the time with the slang that people use and the language that they use that pulls you out of that mood and that setting. Like you have something that's clearly a high fantasy setting set in an ancient time period, and you've got this woman talking about her sweater. And like, that pulls you out of the narrative. You got this high pitch, high fast slang that makes no sense. It sounds like a modern kid talking in this setting where it doesn't belong. If you can get around those elements of Brandon Sanderson that really bug the ever-loving heck out of me, phenomenal storyteller. His Way of Kings is excellent. I strongly, strongly recommend those books. They're really, really good. He creates worlds. I think he has hypergraphia because he just writes all the time and he can't seem to stop. He's got a superhero line of short stories, novels. I say short stories because his books are usually like this, called The Reckoners. I absolutely recommend because those are fan-freaking-tastic.
So, Nick, you brought that up. I've never read the Jack Reacher novels. I actually do want to read them. What I was Dylan Kane was talking about is there's an author. His name is J. Robert Kennedy. I had to look it up because it was driving me nuts. He writes James Acton, Dylan Kane, and Delta Force Unleashed. It's a shared universe. You can read all three stories independently, or you can read them in a certain order to get the entire shared universe version of it. And this dude only writes ebooks. He's probably got about, at this point, probably close to 40 books out now. But James Acton is basically a college professor that is like, he even jokes about being like Indiana Jones. He's not running around with a whip or anything, but dude's always in trouble. Think Crystal Skulls, Knights Templar, Atlantis. I mean, oh crap. One of the best ones was Broken Dove, and it was about the Pope being kidnapped. It's just brilliantly written. I think you would like those if you're into that type of stuff.
We could talk books all day, so we'll have to let everybody go on that note. Next week, you asked the question, Mike, who we're going to have on next week. Still working to cement that. We may or may not have a guest next week. I've got several folks who have got some schedule things going on. But I am definitely looking to have on a guest. I'm hoping to, and if I'm able to work it out, it's going to be somebody we all love, and get us our PG-13 rating back. So that would be good. We'll have to go back on this one and hit the bleep button a few bazillion times.
Yeah, we went. We were definitely well off into the R territory.
I mean, within the first 10 seconds,
Yep.
We were there. But man, it has been a great night. It's been fun talking with y'all. I genuinely hope to see everybody come out Saturday for Free Comic Book Day. Bring your canned goods, your shelf-stable stuff. Check the expiration dates. Make sure that they're not expired. Good rule of thumb, if you wouldn't eat it, try not to inflict it on somebody else, right? Just be cool. Bring something good. Bring something you would eat. These guys, the folks who need this service, a lot of times don't, they're left with, canned Brussels sprouts or something. And will it keep you alive? Yes. Is it going to make you happy to be alive? No. And if you can do things like cans that have pop-top lids and things that don't necessarily require to be cooked, like Chef Boyardee kind of thing is a great example. A lot of these folks don't have any means to cook anything. But then on the other hand, you've got folks who would just like to be able to make a birthday cake for their kid, and you need a cake mix, and that means you need milk and you need things. They don't necessarily have all of the ingredients that go into something like that. So just be thoughtful about it and bring out something that you would eat. Make sure it's not expired. Get in those cosplays. Come out. Have a good time. Get your picture made. Get some ice cream. Get some free comics. Pick up some stuff on sale at the shop. Clean out your box. If you're a subscriber, show up. It should be a fantastic day. It should be a fun day. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody there on Saturday. If you're not local and you want to catch what we're doing, like Alan said, we're going to be going live a time or two. So be on the lookout for that, and you can at least join us from afar. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. If you're watching this later on down the road, we genuinely appreciate you watching this later too. Join us live if you can. Pop into the chat. We'd love to say hi. And we will catch you guys next time. Thank you guys very much. Peace out.